how your application would looks like, because it pulls the remote component. So you can test it thoroughly and then you can move it to the production. Okay, basically all this will be published into the package manager and you have that control with your application. And now it comes to the question, right, how these applications would be aggregated in the runtime. So again, these are separate web applications. In the runtime federation you had a shell, but how it is going to be handled here, right? So here there will be a front-end load balancer. From any of the cloud providers you get a load balancer which would have an SLA of more than 99.95, right? So you will put a global load balancer and you will add a routing rules to this separate micro front-end application, and then that takes care of rendering the page. And the components, as I said, it will be shared during the build time, and that's how the pages will be stitched. So the same page, the order summary and tracking, which is in between this one, right? So this is going to be powered by two different teams or two different micro front ends, but the components will be shared during the build time and the application will be deployed. So the key advantages or the key takeaways with runtime federation, right? So this is highly SEO friendly because it supports server-side rendering. It supports client-side rendering as well. But for our use case, we need SEO optimization to the most. So it supports, it is going to be SEO friendly, and it doesn't create a single point of failure because we don't use any separate shell apps here. So that it doesn't create any single point of failure. And if any component changes, right, we would be able to test it and then we would be able to launch it. So you get a complete control of your application. And again, this type of approach is well suited for building applications within the organization. Let's say like within your organization, you wanted to build a B2C platform and you have 100 plus members of a team, and where you want to group the teams and then you need to build micro front-end application, this suits well. But what about your organization is providing a platform wherein others can build the website and stream that website through your platform? Then this may not be the approach. Then you need to again think through the runtime federation approach. Okay, so these are the two different approaches we thought we will discuss it for today. And one major drawback with build time composition is the dependency management. When the number of micro frontend becomes high, and if the number of components that is shared across the team becomes on the higher side, it is going to be tricky. So it will be very difficult to manage these dependencies. So you need some mechanism to manage these dependencies, right? So how can we do this? So it provides all these advantages, but we still need a mechanism to manage the dependencies in an efficient way, which is a drawback for this build time composition method, right? And this relates to how we manage the code. Okay, how are we going to manage the code? So just two more slides. I think I'm running out of time. So how are we going to manage the code? Any answers? Guys with white t-shirt, I'm not expecting answers from you. So how do you manage the code in GitHub? How do you manage the code? Something like that. Yeah, that is one way of doing it. But there is a direct answer to this, which is monorepo. Okay, so this is again very new within the industry, right? So how you can organize multiple applications within a single GitHub repo, and how you can use the capabilities that comes out of this monorepo manager to set up the quality standards process across all the teams or across all the micro frontend application. The answer is monorepo. So there are many monorepos that are available in the industry, but the notable ones are NX monorepo, and there is something called Rush.js from Microsoft. These are notable monorepo managers available in the market, right? So what is a monorepo? So it is definitely not a monolith. Okay, it's not a monolith application. Okay, it's not a monolith application. So it is a way how you organize your code, how you organize your application, and how you manage your dependencies. It's a single GitHub repository, and it comes with the additional framework called the monorepo manager, which organizes your code, which provides additional out-of-the-box capabilities to connect these apps, connect the dependencies with the apps. What are the apps that are affected when a component gets changed? So these are things that the monorepo can take care. So we will plan for subsequent sessions in our meetup community about this monorepo. And this monorepo would also bring in an organizational culture around the process and the code quality standard. So if you want the quality standard of the SonarQube coverage to be greater than 90, and if you want to add additional DAS testing, SAS testing across all the apps, right? If it is a poly repo or if it is a separate GitHub repo, you need all the teams to implement that. But if it is a monorepo, within a single repo, your monorepo administrator can enable this, and this would apply all this process and quality standards. Okay, and slowly this becomes your organization culture, and this is how the monorepo structure would look like. So you will have multiple apps that are the verticals, and then if any shared dependencies, right? So the shared dependencies can be in two forms. One is the dependency that you get from the package manager like npm or your private package managers like JFrog, and there could also be dependencies from other teams, like we see the tracking component, right? So it is developed by the tracking team, but it will be used across all the micro frontend. So that is the dependency that is within your application teams or within the micro frontend teams. All this will be managed as a horizontal. Apart from that, these monorepo also provides out of the box features. Within NX, we have something called as this executors, with which you can enable additional sets of standards, process, or features that you want to organize your monorepo to make your work and life easy. So these are things that comes out of the monorepos. But what is the pros and cons of using monorepo, right? So the pros, as I said, it is the code sharing and reusability. Be it the npm dependency or the component, it can be installed once and it can be used across all the applications within monorepo. And the dependency management would be very simple. So you build a component, you just need to hook up that component rather than you doing an npm install. And what is the negatives or the downsides of using monorepo? Think of a scenario if the monorepo size become bigger and bigger. If I'm not wrong, Google uses 80 plus applications